We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such.
Are you serious? Like, we at season 7? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 seasons. Yeah, season 7. Magic number. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna go in depth with that, but yeah, this will be a very positive season. I don't know why and what's making me say that, but everything's changed. Everything is a lot different. I know the title you'll still see the podcast about sports and stuff, but yeah, I ain't gonna get no sports. Correction, you will still get sports because this is still called a podcast about sports and stuff. Just want to add that in there. I'm still, like I said, stuff is very fluctuating now. I found that the connection with things is to get people to talk, as well as me taking time to talk. So you'll notice it, especially when you hear the first few episodes of this season. But it's just about sitting down and just having good talk, good conversation. Pass the message. Y'all know they ain't going nowhere. If you know, you know. If you've been around for a while, you already know how we give it up. But just hang in there. The content's amazing. The moves are even more amazing. And just put yourself in the right headspace to get this information. So hope y'all enjoy. What is up? What's going on? Episode 378 of the Past PT is here, or the Past Podcast is here. I am your host, BT, with yet another episode. You will probably be confused, just like I am. But yes, there is no fan. There is not as much background noise. I am taking a leap of faith with my recording flow. Now, let me be clear. You will hear this water bottle because a brother's still going to make sure he stay hydrated. That has probably secretly become my $1 million rule of thumb or logic of recording with podcasting. Like, everyone will say, I want to do a podcast, and I tell them all of the details and intricacies, all of the bells and whistles is cool, but keep a bottle of water and stay hydrated, because trust me, you're going to need it as you're getting into the 30, 40, 50 1-hour mark of recording a show. So I looked at my list. First and foremost, this will probably be one of the first podcasts in a while that I have quite a few topics to talk about. And I want to make sure I don't leave anything or any thought unturned. Now, we'll go ahead and be clear that these will be a little unique in their order, but they're kind of shared on when I had the thought or the ability to address or discuss these topics. So I want to be sure that I get those intangibles or bells and whistles out of the way early. Before I go into my list, though, I do want to go ahead and address a little bit of sports. Now, in the past week, the NBA Finals has been going on. I will say that I watched a good amount of game 1. No, actually, I take that back. I did not watch game 1 because I was out. I sat and watched a predominantly large amount of game 2. I was kind of in between with game 3. And game 4, I'll be 100% honest, I did not watch. I think I stopped watching it after halftime, which I'm kind of glad I did. I will say with a straight face and with confidence that I see why Jokic is able to be in the conversation each year of MVP. Because I've seen a lot of people play basketball, but he is one of the first people that I've watched play basketball and play it regardless of how full pace the game is going, he's going to play at his pace and he does not care. And I think what makes it an even more bearable or interesting dynamic or way to look at it is Malone does not give any kickback about or pushback on how he plays because he understands why he's playing the way he does, and it works for the sake of the team and it works for the sake of the offense. So it all, to say what I was saying, it all balances itself out, and that you personally cannot recreate, which I think is probably one of the best things ever. So yeah, I wanted to give that attention. Right now, the series, Denver is up 3-1. Game 5 is Monday in Denver. They could possibly finish it off. People talk about this, but it's something that's very important to really address. Teams really do become challenged by the reference or playing at a venue known as Mile High. Because it is a much different or much higher altitude, and it can play a very huge part on your style of play. Hang on for me one sec. Okay, we're back. I have gotten an idea, and I think I'm going to abide by that for future recordings. But right now, we're going to let this one rock. And y'all know, look, if you've been around with the show long enough, y'all know I don't hold any punches or really deny anything. Typically, I'm always recording where it's usually microphone stand on table, laptop. If I have another monitor, so be it. Setting up this way is a good thing, but also it's a challenge if your mic and your computer are close. Case in point, you probably will hear it, but it won't be as noticeable as to how much background noise there is. And this is probably when I'm about to expose how much of a podcast snob I am. Hold on for me one sec. All right, I think we back, and I'm connecting with my inner child / inner creativity, because anyone who's been hearing me or knowing about my show knows that I am a big advocate of sound, background noise. The less the better. Like, I can clean up just about anything now that I've gotten more comfortable with recording. The trade-off of that is you sometimes don't want to feel like you have to do as much editing or modifying with the original audio if you can reduce things on your end, on your personal behalf. And this is an example of that. Case in point, you're probably going to look at it and say, I don't really hear a difference. Some people will say, oh wait, it is a little different. And it's interesting because all it takes is just placing the mic in its own, almost like giving the microphone its own island. And I know a lot of y'all are like, you talking about a microphone at the 6 or 7 minute mark of a podcast? Like, what makes it such a big deal? It is one of those things where you want to be sure, and this is kind of almost indirectly podcasting 101, because one, your gold mine with recording is going to be your voice. And I've always been one to say that if you're too close to a microphone, too far away from a microphone, it can be heard and it can be noticed. However, if your voice, like, because of how I talk, I don't talk at a very high decibel to begin with. I mean, I already talk at a very high decibel. So I don't need to be, as they call it, directly over the microphone. So that's why in many cases, I'm always going to have my microphone near me, but away from me. And how it was set up initially, it was close, but not as close. But where it's at now, it's like what most people call in the podcast world a sweet spot. Anyways, all of that being said, I know I'm like tangenting on a super random tangent, but I want to share, or just wanted to make everyone aware of what's been going on with the NBA Finals, and my boy, he already said it. He was on the show before, Lonnie. He said Nuggets in 5. If it becomes Nuggets in 5, I would not be surprised. So we will see how that plays out. Like I said, I have a lot of stuff that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to go through these in the context of why or where I'm going with what I shared, so that no one's like just thinking, okay, you just threw some topics together. Lately, I've shared this on the podcast before. I've been reading the book Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, which I would tell anyone, if you are trying to find a way to start adjusting your process with or without your phone, I would read this book. Now, if you want to scale it back a little bit, I would read How to Break Up with Your Phone, which I'm also planning to read very soon as well, because I know for a fact that book is going to expose a lot without realizing that a lot needs to be exposed as well. I will share those links to to those books in the show notes as well, for both Digital Minimalism as well as How to Break Up with Your Phone. I think, like I said, I think they're both good books to read. I have both. Ironically, I've had Digital Minimalism in digital format for a while, and I've had How to Break Up with Your Phone for a while in digital format. I've recently gotten a physical version of the physical copy of Digital Minimalism. Hopefully that didn't confuse you, because if it didn't, it confused me, but it's okay. So I'm starting with that because one of the things that I've been talking about or sharing is there's a term that's heard or used with being on social media called doom scrolling or doom video scrolling or doom watching videos. And what I mean by that is you can get pulled into the YouTube algorithm very indirectly without knowing it. Case in point, the more channels you're subscribed to, the more notifications you will get reeled into of so-and-so is going to have a video coming on at 6:00, and you're planning your day around that 6:00 point to watch a video that might be a 15-minute video. It might be a 45-minute video. So that 45 minutes you've now given to that video that could have been done or utilized in another avenue or lane. Video scrolling, self-explanatory, to say without saying. TikTok can pull you without knowing it pulls you. And a lot of times we really aren't as aware of the magnitude of what it does until we're knee deep in it. And by then it's too late. The next topic kind of makes this point clear, because I was going to do a detox update to share like where I was at with everything, how it would be like with or without applications. And my intention was to not be on social media for the month of June. I didn't have really a direct, clear cut as to why, but then I realized I just needed a break for about a week. I got pulled in, not in the way I would like to. I'll share that story near the end of the podcast. As a matter of fact, it's going to be my passive message. I won't get too in depth with that, but I will talk about that. I won't get too in depth about it now, but I will talk about it at the end of the podcast. Words like microphone moves, don't even know how to speak English, but it's okay. We're going to figure this out. But the detox has been good. I've made unique changes with app alignment. And what I mean by app alignment, which a lot of us don't realize how important it is, how we maneuver and place our apps on our phone kind of gives us the ability to make what we need to accessible to ourselves. Case in point, if you have an app that is immediately available to get to, you're going to frequently go to that app because you can immediately get to it. The more apps that now, Apple made an update a couple of years ago, which I thought was one of the best updates, because at first what you pretty much had was any app that you installed, it was on your homepage. There was no getting it off your page, moving it around, none of that. It was literally every app was on your homepage regardless. So what they did was they gave you the option to reduce how many pages you would have on your home screen. So some people, for instance, may only have one page, and that one page only shows what they need to go to or what they're going to frequently be using on a daily basis. Like anyone that's everyone, whether you are for or against it, you're going to have at least your phone and your text messages. Those two are going to be two essential things that you're going to have on your home screen. Some may have it go as far as having it on their lower bar that it travels on every page, Android or iPhone. When you get into certain things such as music, banking, things that sites you're frequently going to, then that's when it starts to get a little tricky and a little interesting. So a prime example of this is shopping apps. So like Wish, Temu, AliExpress, Amazon, Best Buy, Target. If you're going to those sites or going to those apps to get some information about possibly buying things, that's one thing. But it's a bigger challenge when you open, like you have a folder for shopping and you open shopping and literally one of the first apps there is either Temu or Amazon, because you're then compelled to say, oh, it's here, so I need to go to it to buy product. I say all of that just to say it in the sense of detoxing can be challenging and can be an adjustment if you're trying to still learn and find your way. And I will be the first to admit, this past week, I really have not been doing as much reading, but I have been doing more journaling. And my journaling, if I'm being open and real, some days my journaling could be one or two lines. Some days I get into it and I unpack and I unplug. I've found that I'm doing more writing of practical resources and using my bullet journal as a place to store those thoughts. This is probably not going to be relevant to you all, but it will make sense in me saying this, because this is what I always reference of putting it on wax. A couple of months ago, I did a certification training, and I was sitting and I thought about, like a couple of weeks ago, I was like, why did my bullet journal get filled so fast? And I realized that the reason why was because for the course that I was taking, instead of having like a dedicated notebook or a dedicated space to take notes or type ideas or whatever the case may be, I used my bullet journal as a space to hold these topics. Don't know if it was a good thing or if it was a bad thing, but then the bigger challenge now is actually two. One, I still have the ability to take the exam, which is fine. But two, I'm not in that department or doing that line of work now as to what I'm doing, but I still do want to, I still have that idea, that thought of like wanting to get that certification, because having it is almost like because it's not as far as I know, I don't think it's like you have to renew it type of certification. And if it is, so be it. But I'd rather be in a space of having it. And if it's an option to renew and evolve with it, then making it a more complicated process. So thought about that. I say all of that because that has played a big part in my bullet journal consumption, because I think I may have shared it on a video one time that I will probably finish using that bullet journal more than likely by the end of July, if not August. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. So the detox update, it went well. It will probably be fluctuating again. Not being online as much, but I definitely do know or see the advantage of taking that time to unplug. Ironically, I did a screen time challenge with Bagby brand, which many of you know I'm like probably one of the biggest advocate and supporters of Bagby brand. Like I'm looking at the Bagby door option. They were a big part of why I've been reading Digital Minimalism. I have the fubbing band in my bag. I believe I have their other bag at work because I thought I brought it home, but I didn't. Um, Low key, and I'm hoping I'll find it soon. I want to find my original red bag because the red, I've shared this on the podcast plenty of times. The red Bagby bag that I got is always going to have a long term connection with me because of the fact that that was where it all started. Like I got that bag and literally like I think I've paid forward probably I've paid forward 2 bags and I've paid forward a desk pad with that gives you the option to hold your phone. And like I said, people think it's not a big deal, but you find yourself moving and operating differently with that. And most importantly, and I haven't even talked about this yet, but I also have and do not laugh, but if you do, it's fine. I've recently purchased a lockbox for my phone where it's now I'm gonna give my take about this because if you go back to about October or November of last year, I had purchased a lockbox timer, which I personally was a fan of. The only 2 downsides were the timer factor and also the emergency option. Like there should be more than, in my opinion, there should be more than 2 emergency unlocks, but that's me. That's just my take on it. So I went away from that option and I went to just a traditional box and they give you like these 2 keys. Now I went on, I believe it was AliExpress and I got it for way less than I would have if I got it from Amazon. Came in the mail, tested it out. I personally see this lasting for a while. My drawback, and I'm looking at it now, I almost wish I could take a picture of just these keys to give you an idea. But the 2 keys that come with the packet, I mean with the box, because you need the key pretty much to unlock it. I don't trust them very well. And when I say that, I mean it as they're plastic, and it's one of those things where it could be functioning, working fine, doing what it needs to today. But then if it gets to an urgent or genuine situation where you need to get in and unlock the box, I don't want that to be like the tell all be all. So I say all that to say I'm now looking at possibly doing a wooden box option. And just getting like a traditional wooden box with a lock on it and the ability to lock and key on it and go from there. I'm spending more time on this than I expected, but my personal way, I wrote a topic wrote a bullet point saying how I personally unplug. Talked about some of that already. Personal unplug is phone away, focus. And I've been talking about this frequently and often about the Pomodoro technique, journaling, reading, believe it or not, gaming. And I emphasize this when I tell people gaming is the option, but to be specific, offline gaming is going to be a better shot for you. And the reason I say that is because with offline gaming, the competition isn't as intense. Now, play devil's advocate a little bit because I want people to understand there are some online games that you can play that do not consume as much mental aggression or frustration. Prime example of this would be, and these are my personal because I play them a lot, Pac-Man 99 and Tetris 99. I can play those online and not feel as aggressively, like it's pretty much me against my board as well as against everybody I'm playing against. But it's not on a Call of Duty, Madden, 2K, Gears, FIFA. It's not on that level. Like I can enjoy it and not feel like, oh my God, I lost. It's the worst thing in the world. Or if you make a mistake, you got teammates that are like, well, you should have went this way. And it's like, I'm just here to play casually and relax and have a good time. So those are my unplugging options or ways that I kind of reset on that level. Business reflection reset. So, and interestingly enough, next week I have a meeting with my marketing mentor, which I'm not looking forward to, only because I really have not been working on anything business related, and it's no one's fault but mine. But it's also been me in like a work business transition of like just trying to figure out my role and doing what I need to on my day-to-day job, as well as putting time into my business after work. Um, when your routine changes, things change. In case, what I mean by that is if you're in a position where you get off work, you got free time, you can go out do whatever, it's all good. But between me having doing different workouts, between um just trying to put time in for myself as far as like detoxing, um I call it the creative freeze. Like I have like different time blocks that I've placed on my day to day, like decompressing time. I'm usually not like, okay, I'm decompressing, so let me figure out what I'm gonna do with this business. A lot of times I've used my decompression space on my calendar as a time to really decompress and like literally take myself out on a date and like enjoy my own company. For most people who would probably think that it's not true, phone is down. I'm not as phone heavy because it's usually my opportunity to kind of like not people for a minute, and I don't need to people while I'm not peopling, basically. So all of that being the case, the business run has been kind of not in its best movement, but it's not, I haven't given up. Like I'm not at a point where I'm like, man, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm done with the business. It's been more so just trying to reset and recalibrate what I want to do and how do I want to do it and what that looks like. So um the interesting part is today is the 10th. As days progress, and likely this upcoming week will be a massive amount of this, it's going to predominantly consist of really looking at what my intentions and what my focal point will be for the second half of 2023 and leading into 2024, because a lot has to change to get to that point. Dub they called it Dub one year, but Apple did their worldwide developer conference this past week. It was ironically on Monday, and I watched probably about close to an hour's worth of it. Didn't realize when I turned it off there was way more that they talked about. So like I was getting, and I have this as a note, so I'm going to share it as well with you all. The 25-minute video. There's a 25-minute video online that details mostly everything that was talked about during the event. The big highlight, of course, was, well, so there were two. I won't say two. There were quite a few. A couple things. So I'll get into a couple things, and I'll talk about the big boy at the end. The how can I put this? iOS is getting a facelift, and a lot of people are beta users who will get to kind of test it out and see what it's all about. I have the ability to do the beta. I just don't do the betas anymore for personal reasons, and I'm not really pressed to have the beta. They did share that Safari will be more user friendly in the sense of if you sign into an account and you have more than one account, being able to distinguish whether it's a home account, a work account, things of that sort. That's going to be coming up on the Mac OS version, and that should be pretty huge. I tried. I lasted 20 something minutes. But they will be putting a larger emphasis on they're really trying to bring more usage out of the phone and out of the watch, out of the computer, and out of the iPad. Even down to the iPad will give you the option to do multiple timers at one time, which I think that's cool. Big story, one of which is I always joke, I call it the cheese grater, but there's a computer they have that's like very high end computer. It's like $7,000. Not being funny, you can't corner that if you wanted to. That is going to be like again, and I say this because it's important to really get into. If the return on investment exists for the product, then you get the product. Um, just to put it out there as a way to say it, like with the laptop that I recently purchased, this is a return on investment because I'm returning the investment in the basis of my designing, in the basis of my creativity. Um, Obviously, like recording podcasts, it wasn't the worst thing on my previous laptop, but on the same token, I also was noticing that there were certain applications that I was like behind on, and I was like, no, we should not be having 2022 um, programs or 2021 programs on a Mac, because of the time where we are now. So, um, bigger story, of course, everyone thought the glasses they brought out Apple Vision. It is not as much VR more than it is AR. So AR, many of you know, augmented reality. The easiest example I give to people is, and people can do this with their phone, so many of you might not even think of doing it. You look at a refrigerator and you say, "Ooh, this is a nice refrigerator. I'm thinking about buying it. How much does it cost?" Cool, they show you the price. They say, "Would you like to see what this item would look like in your home?" And you say yes. You're giving then a space of a visual of like an actual visual of where you live. And then you say, place the item here. They will show you what the item would look like in your home. The difference in this level or in this platform is on this device is that it's going to be for the sake of you accessing many of your applications and your day-to-day activities that you would do, say, from a phone, from a computer, but you would just be doing it in a virtual, like a VR, AR environment. So I did, like I said, I saw the keynote explained it, but I did watch another individual's video where he talked about it a little bit more. So I will add his video in as well because he gives like a full breakdown on it specifically. All right, quite a bit, quite more stuff. Tasking the tasks. Everyone has tasks. Everyone has stuff they want to work on. The problem becomes, are you actually tasking out those tasks accordingly? Meaning, are you putting them down? Are you committing yourself to saying, I'm going to get them done? If you're not doing those things, then your first step should be, is tasking the issue, and should you be finding a different way to work on what you need to work on? For some people, time blocking is the way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you have to find what's going to work for you. You may need to collaborate between the two, which is writing out what the tasks are and setting a time frame for when that task needs to be accomplished. Because a lot of times, personal experience, I will write out a task. The task never has a date or a time for when it needs to be done, and it doesn't get done. And then I'm sitting there like, well, why didn't I do it? Well, you didn't make any time or space to do it. So that's really all I have for that phrase. We consume a lot of content in so many different sources. We take notes on different applications. We listen to podcasts on different applications. We play music. We, as I mentioned just now, put our tasks down. Find one place to put them without making everything be so bombarding across different platforms. Reason I'm saying that is because the worst thing to do is to try to find something and you're having to play the search game between multiple applications, hoping that you find it and then you don't find it. Some instances are out of control. The prime example I go to is authenticators. A lot of authenticators are limited to what authenticators certain applications use, so you have no control over that. However, you do have your ability and way to control where you're personally storing your information, i.e. Google Keep versus Apple Notes versus Samsung Notes, which I think might still revert back to Google Keep, versus Notion. you want to find which one of those is going to be your best place to hold notes. Now, you also then have to look at which note taking app is going to work well if you're on a go to on a in and on the go basis, because some companies you work for, some places you may visit internet wise may say, "Oh, you're using this application. We don't support it as third party on our Wi-Fi." So you got to remember those things as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Podcasts, I've shared this, and I got a friend of mine, and I respect him for it because he has a space and an avenue that he keeps his podcast in, and I think that makes the podcast storage process a lot easier. My podcast listening is all over the place. I'm not gonna lie, because I have the default podcast app on Apple, but I also listen to podcasts on Spotify. So now it comes down to, do I need to take it all off of Spotify? Is it time? I have thought about this numerous times where I'm like, is it time to let Spotify go? But then I'm also, there are certain exclusive things that I get on Spotify that I don't get on Apple Music. So it's like the trade-off there too. Because if anything, I utilize Apple Music more for their radio stations, as well as many of the, if you want to listen to like a full, like listening to full albums on Apple Music is a lot more simpler than it is on Spotify. And I know that's strange to say, but it makes sense in its own unique way for the most part. So just finding those places and those ways to like consume what you're consuming and not having everything be everywhere. That helps. Like that's one of the probably the most unique ways to maintain or build your organizational structure with what you're doing. As an entrepreneur, it's time that we talk about this, and this is probably gonna take up a lot of the talk, but I'm gonna talk about it because it needs to be said. Many people want deals on product, but they only do this with small business. They don't do this with the brick and mortars. They don't do this with the e-commerces. They don't do this with the Fortune 500s. They don't do this with any of your remote everyday companies that we all know and love and talk about. No one goes to Taco Bell. I won't even use Taco Bell as an example. No one goes to Wawa and say, well, your gas is this price. I think you should sell it at this price. You buy the gas, you complain about the gas price, but you still get gas because you need to get gas, or you get a limited amount, as most people do. I say all of that because sometimes when it comes to small businesses, we will find this very unique way to lowball or cut the corner with small businesses on what they offer and or provide. And it can become very challenging when it shouldn't be challenging. And I'm personally just not a fan of that. Like, if a person tells you that their price is this, that's their price. Don't sit there and like, oh, well, you got to hook up, or can I do a deal, or can you work with me on this? And I was in the midst of an experience with this. I'm gonna be smart with that. But I'll just say that people will utilize the resources, but not want to pay when it comes to what is offered for the product, and not thinking of the long run. That's really my PG transparent way of saying it. I've even had to sit with when it was like a knee jerk blindsided decision yesterday, where someone reached out to me for something that if anybody else were to do it, they would have charged the crap out of them. Me, it wasn't even me charging or coming up with a number. It was just me sitting there like, I don't even know what the number would be for doing this, because no one's asked me to do that before. So now it makes you, and it forces you to think of like, well, what would my price have been if I do that for someone, or someone comes to me with that type of a suggestion or an idea. Teachable moments, nothing to beat yourself up over. It's one of those things where you learn as you live, and that's really what it comes down to. So Stop lowballing small businesses, and most of all, as a small business, do not lowball yourself. If you know your value, you know your worth, put your number and stand behind your number. If the person doesn't want to pay that price, let them find whoever they can that can pay whatever their budget can afford, and then you work on your business plan and your flow from there. I talked about planning a little bit. I talked about tasking, packaging content. I was almost to the point where I was about to be in an overdosed planning space solely due to the fact that I was trying to maintain my bullet journal, trying to write in my physical journal, and I started back doing the 90X planner, which many of you probably have never heard of, but it is a company who makes these. It's a 90X planner. It's for 90 days, and it's an action planner where you basically come up with what you're looking to do as an action or a goal and how to go about accomplishing those goals or those plans. And for the first couple of days, I was locked in. I was writing down stuff. I was planning out. Everything was everything. And I noticed as I was doing it, I'm like, I'm really not getting what I need out of doing this. And it doesn't fit with what I'm doing now as a bullet journaler. Because bullet journaling personally for me has been, okay, once whatever I have for the day, once it's done, bullet journal it out. And also I use it to notate like a lot of good resources or tips that I find online. Because I've said this before, I am not the aggressive bullet journaler who puts like, does all the artwork, the designing and all that. I have that type of time, but I don't have that type of time. Because the designing portion of doing most bullet journaling, especially if it's a weekly write out, most of the time that takes almost 15, 20 minutes, depending on the person and depending on the space. So I released or let go of the 90X action planner. Will it come back around? I don't know. Ironically, I have 2 of them, so I may resurrect it again. I don't know. I just know for a fact that even when I was carrying a book, the bullet journal holder that I had purchased a couple months ago, I would carry it around and I'm like, I'm carrying this just to carry it. I'm not even like writing anything in it. And I didn't see the worth of it at that time, and it just wasn't beneficial at all. So I cut that out. And like I said, if you scale back, if you find that what you're doing is too much, do what's going to make sense for you to get what you need to do done. And most importantly, be productive and be proactive. Because that's really all it comes down to at the end of the day, is getting what you need to get done and not beating yourself up or being so hard on yourself for what didn't get accomplished. Because I think that's the challenge of the wall we run into and not even knowing we ran into that wall. So yeah, I definitely want to share that as a message or as a thought with people who have experienced that or are experiencing that now. This is probably going to be an early passing message, but I'm going to talk about it because it's here. I've had everyone say this in every language. I've said this on my TikTok channel recently, and I'm sharing this with you all. Don't be so hard on yourself. You may feel like you're not where you should be. You may feel like everything ain't going according to plan. But at times you may need to take time and truly forgive yourself and really be patient with yourself through whatever you have going on. And trust me, it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. You need those challenges. You need those bumps in the road to really bring it all in. And I think when you really can sit down and say, hey, I tried. Hey, I'm working on it. Hey, it's not like I don't have any interest. That's the first step to becoming a better person. And you don't even realize it sometimes. this spins also into my next point. What or who are you stressed about? What's the source of your stress? Take time to find what that stress, where it's coming from, or what's generating the stress, and how to de-stress. Like this could go right back into the how you personally unplug. Like what things you're doing to unplug to cut back on the stress, because we stress ourselves out over so many things, and we're like, oh man, I'm stressed out, I'm so tired, I'm so burned out, and it's like, what's causing that stress, or what's making you feel that way? I have both of her books. Ironically, I recently got the journal version of the 5 minute or the 5 habits. I'm misreading it or misnaming the book, but Mel Robbins did a book about the 5 second rule, and I noticed when in times that I've used that 5 second rule, I got a lot of stuff done. Brian, what the hell is the 5 second rule? Glad you asked. Literally, the 5 second rule is you count down starting at 5. And then once you get to 1, it's either 1 or 0. Whatever it is that you need to do, you do it. And to some people, it's like, I mean, that you make that sound like it's so simple. The thing is, it's so simple that it's simple, but most people don't invest that type of time or effort into themselves because I don't even want to say fear of the unknown, but more so concerned of things that should not require concern. Because what happens is we know what we need to do. We know that it's on us to get it done, but we will throw every brick wall known to man in front of that thing to not do it, because then that means we are held responsible, we're held accountable for that thing. And for a lot of people, that is a challenge in and of itself. So I want you all, and as Mel has said it on her podcast numerous times, and as I'm saying it to you all on this podcast, find that opportunity, something that you just feel like ain't right or don't make sense. Count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and do it. Whatever that thing is. Even if you don't think you can do it, or you have like your doubts and your concerns, take a chance. You might surprise yourself. And I'll leave y'all with that. Got to the rest of these topics a little quicker than I expected, but I feel good. Again, I'm going to give my fair apologies. Did not know that those first couple topics would be so weighted, but I think it was a lot of talk for you all, but it was also talk for me to like get through it. So I want to make sure I share that as we near the end of this show. I have about 3 more topics, or 2 topics, a topic / pass the message, and I've kind of passed the messages along the way, but y'all know how I go. If you've been around, if you know, you know. I talked about this earlier with doom scrolling or doom video watching, and one of the hardest videos to get away from, and don't start looking for these now. I'm warning you now, do not look for them now, because they will consume your timeline on a different level. And that is the morning routine and productivity overload. Everyone is telling you about how to do a morning routine. Everyone is telling you about how to be productive. Yes, Brian just talked about productivity. And yes, I'm always talking about morning routines with a lot of people. But I'm going to say this to everyone who is listening, because it's something that needs to be said, and it's something that we need to really call a spade a spade. And that is, find your way to do it. Find what's going to make sense for you to get up and get stuff going. Trying to follow what everybody else is doing will wear the living daylights out of you. It will burn you out without trying, because you're looking at it, well, they did this, maybe I should try and do this, because if I do this, then I'll be more productive like they are. And it's like, your routine ain't their routine either. Their day-to-day is not your day-to-day. So it's going to be a different it'll be a different soiree for you than it would be for the other person. And I think we sometimes don't realize the magnitude of that until literally we're knee deep in it. And it's like, nah, man, this one for me. Going back to what I talked about earlier with the 90X action planner. I got pulled into that, and I'm going to make this commitment tonight or tomorrow when I edit. Probably, I don't even know. I think I'm editing this podcast. You all probably will not hear this podcast honestly until Tuesday, because I've literally thought about like my next few days. I'm like, all right, I got work, then I got gym, then I got stretching session, then I got work. Supposed to go walking tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, Tuesday will probably be my best bet. But I'm saying this now because I really want to make this clear. The 90X planner, or the action planner that I purchased, the only reason I purchased that planner was because an email came up in my inbox that promoted the book, and it was, I think, like, might have been maybe $6. And why I'm sharing that and what makes this even more interesting, because I didn't even talk about this too much because it wasn't anything that was a story, but now that I'm circling back to it, it's really a story. I'm with 2 of those books. So I have a second one right now that's still in the wrapper, still has like the stickers and everything. I have the extra pin. I have all the stuff for it. And I'm like, I didn't really even use the first one. Why did I get 2 of them? And I'm like, I already got the books, already got everything. I think they send you like a PDF version of it so you can do it digitally. I wouldn't even, if I were to attempt to do it digitally, maybe, but even then, like, I'm learning how to get away from that avenue, because if any of you have been keeping up with the podcast last year, I tried to do the digital planning and digital journaling. That was, I don't know. I don't, and it's not, let me be clear, it's not me being set in my ways. It just did not go. But I'm saying this to people who are listening. If you think digital planning works for you, try it. If you think digital journaling can help you get thoughts out, try it. Heck, if you even are to the point where you do voice notes as a form of journaling, try it. Didn't share this earlier, but Apple is looking to unveil an app for journaling, which I'm glad they're doing. They're going to make it encrypted. I think that could be a step in the right direction for some people. You never know. But the morning routines, you're going to get different stories that's going to break down how to have a morning routine, how to work on a morning routine, how to come up with a morning routine. Find your morning routine. For the longest time, my morning routine was RAMP. And it was read, affirmation, meditate, pray. I can't name it what I want to name it now, but somewhere in there, I need to add exercise now, because that's part of my morning routine now. And it makes a big difference. The dilemma lately has been I've been able to do the exercising. I don't do the affirmations. Haven't done the meditation. Haven't prayed in the morning in so long. So trying to sit and like formulate that might be an assignment that I need to work on. So I'll mark that too. I've got so many random marks on this podcast, but I know what they're for. So that's all that matters. But yeah, productivity overload can hit you too, because it's a matter of, do you write it by hand? Do you write, like I bought, and I do use these, I will admit. It's by Space Aid. There's another company who made their version of it, where it's basically a holder for these, it's like a packet of to-do cards. And you pretty much, in the top right-hand corner, you can put either the day of the week, whatever date it is. You can put whatever the tasks are, whatever the title of the task is, and then just write out the tasks. And then once you finish them, check them off. So doing that can help you too. You can also, like I said, you can always do it digitally. I've been personally ping-ponging multiple times between reminders and Things 3, because I'm like, do I like reminders? Do I like Things 3? Is Things 3, was it worth paying for? I've already put like a good amount into Things 3. It's a little tough, but then I'm like, but it ain't broke. It's kind of almost, it literally comes back to the age-old phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I found Things 3 to be a way. So that's something that I started writing in my bullet journal to think of, is like what my productivity process will look like from here on out, along with how it will flow going into the second half of the year. So I've considered that as well. We're 10 days into the month, and I don't think I talked about it last week, but if I did already, then you'll just hear it again. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's so challenging because you would think that, as important as mental health is, from the men's aspect, that they would have more, I don't even know if I want to say emphasis or talk or discussion or whatever behind it. But I've noticed that it's like, it's really not, it really hasn't gotten the attention that I would have expected it to get. But then I also look at it as, I mean, unless there's a way, and it should not be this way, but unless there's a view to see it be beneficial, no one's really going to hop on board with like, oh, well, I think we should make this like a real life topic. It doesn't become a real life topic until it becomes a real life topic, and it should not be that way, but it's that way. And sometimes that can really become a challenge when it shouldn't be a challenge. But like I said earlier, here we are. So to all my men, especially my black men, but all men in general, do not ignore or do not disregard the importance of your well-being or your mental health. I'm not sitting here saying run out and you got to get a therapist, but I am going to say, if you need to talk to somebody other than the same folks you talk to who give you the same old advice. You may need the source to be from someone you don't know to really bring it home. And we sometimes don't think about that until we're really having to sit and think about it. So I really want to bring that to light today, and I will be pushing to make it a goal to talk about it each week of mental health. I may even throw some wild, random stats of the importance of mental health, especially for men. Final story, and this will be the message that I'm passing along. And I want to be clear that I say this as we continue. If you have been with me through the whole show, thank you. If you have been a supporter of the podcast, I appreciate it. Wherever you listen to the podcast, if it gives you the option to do so, please leave a review. Please leave any feedback, comments, anything. I'm always open to finding ways to make this podcast better. And that's literally been the goal from day one. I don't even know how to start with the story. That's why I'm like literally trying to like sit with it, but then I'm also like, my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is kicking in too. Tuesday I went to work. Didn't think much of it. And after work, I decided I needed an impromptu self-care, unwind, de-stress, whatever you want to call it. And while I was there, I happened to briefly view social media, ironically Facebook, and a lot of my friends were just frustrated with the news that they had received. I was oblivious to it, wasn't certain what had even happened. And I'm trying to remember if I called. No. So while I'm out at a venue, a friend of mine calls me asking if I was okay. And I said, yeah, I'm okay. What's up? And they tell me about the story, which many of you have seen on the news. The story reached mainstream, like major airwave news, like CNN, Fox News, probably MSNBC if I was taking a guess. And she just was asking if I was okay, and I said yeah, and she tells me, asking me what's going on. She's giving me the information, and sometimes people don't understand. Even in the midst of it all going on, you don't want to hear about it because it's already like, look, I'm in a place that's safe. I'm good. There's nothing to really worry with. But it was, her perspective of it is, I know you're out and about, but I just know you just hoping you weren't over in that area. And I was like, nah, oddly enough, I didn't go to that venue. I went to a sister company near my job. So it's like I would have been over there if that had occurred, but I was already like, I think at the time when all of it happened, I think I had just gotten off work already anyway. So it was still would have been like a little too fresh, but either way. So then I check on my boy who does security with this company for this event. He says he's good. He's checking all the folks, making sure they good. And yeah, it I was glad he was okay, and it was even challenging because it was like he was like, man, I'm going, supposed to be going on vacation tomorrow, and I was like, yeah, like take vacation by all means. And the next day, I get an update from someone I personally know who has been like probably the one person that has been able to keep me sane after leaving from where we worked together because he's still there, I'm not. But when I left, he was one of those people that I really like kind of leaned on and didn't realize I needed to lean on. Um, but he gave me an update on his connection with those involved, and that really made it hit even closer to home. The one place, let me rephrase it. The last place you would expect any type of crime or violence to happen should be a graduation ceremony. Now, for the sake of me knowing how to do media and also for the sake of not making anything out of context, I will not go into details with names of individuals or anyone involved because that's not what we do. If you want to look up information, Google is your best friend. But it's so crazy. What's so tough about it is folks got to learn to let stuff go. And that's really the message that I'm going to share. And it might be able to cause me to do something that I've not wanted to do in a while, but I may break because it's been about a month. But I digress. But we gotta let stuff go. We gotta stop holding things with other people. Someone, two individuals lost their lives. Another individual their life will never be the same. Another individual will have to now move forward without two lives that were part of their life no longer here. In many instances, we think about the immediate, but we don't think about the long term. And I'm the first to say that it's not gonna be easy with stuff that goes on. But we gotta learn how to like move better with what we with our resolution or solution of things. The solution that this person decided to do was not the solution. Because they didn't make a solution, they made an impact. They made a major impact on the city, on the state, and even without people never being here or never have been here, the world. Because that story hit airwaves everywhere. When I started to tell this story or started talking about this just recently, I really didn't know what angle or what direction I was going to go with starting off the topic. But in everything that I've just said and kind of reeling it in and bringing it back home, all I really can say is like, stop holding grudges over dumb bullshit. Just stop. And in a wider context, don't allow holding it to become now, well, my way to resolve it is to take someone's life. Again, I'm not going to go into details. There's more I want to say about it, but I don't want to talk about any of this while there's an active case. Two, there's active parties involved and having to go through that whole ordeal to come up with a resolution. But now you in a whole different state of mind with everything, all from one decision. There were other people injured. Someone was hit by a vehicle. Like, it was just a lot. And I think the biggest part of it personally was just Tuesday and Wednesday. And it before that happened, and this is not me being selfish, but this is me being real. I had a meeting at work with my manager. And, we just kind of got into our regular conversation about different things. And I was just telling him, I was like, I got a lot on my mind, a lot going on. And before we had left out of the room for the meeting, he asked me, he was like, is everything okay? Are you doing all right? And I'm just sitting there like, he's genuinely asking, but I'm genuinely not wanting to talk about it. And I'm confused as to like, why am I being so guarded and not knowing what's going on? And then all of that happens afterward. But it's like, there's so much that goes on in people's lives that everyone doesn't even remotely have the time of day to invest in hearing about those things while still trying to go on about their day-to-day activities. The person who did what they did, you really don't know what was on their mind that day. Granted, they came in with that intention because they brought what they brought with them to do what they did. But to get to that point and put everyone who was there at risk, that's where it gets a little. That's where it becomes a bigger challenge. And I'm gonna say this about the whole thing, and then I'm gonna wrap up. The incident is one thing. The incident was bad. It's horrific. Prayers, condolences to those lost, the family members, immediate family, extended family, friends, anyone who was at the graduation. I said nothing because I know grief counseling is going to be intense for a while with them, especially. And I'll even say for the students who were at the following graduation, because they were getting ready to graduate, and then other schools had to transition how their ceremonies were done. But what makes this even crazier, and I haven't done an Ass of the Week in years because I just don't do them anymore. But if there was an ass of the week for this, it would definitely be the politician who like spin cycled the whole situation and turned it into like a campaign opportunity. I don't have that person's name, but again, do your research. It's out there. They're out there with the microphone, with setup, PR, all that crap, and doing this whole spiel about why they should be in office and all. And I'm sitting here like, this is why we can't. We wonder why there's no opportunity to get ahead, and you have things like this occur that puts us so far behind. So I say all that to say, those who you feel should be forgiven, or those that you feel you need to have dialogue with them, talk it out, hash it out, because you really just never know. You don't know where a person's mind is, where a person's heart is, where anything is. And it's nothing, it's nothing. If you want to hold resentment or you want to hold grudges, that's on you. But sometimes, and on the flip side of that, if it's hey, I need to let you go, let them go and be okay with it. And don't beat yourself up about like, man, I wish I was there through like more. I showed up from, and it's like, you can't be there, but you can't be there but for so much. Like it's the reality of the beast. And most of us know that, but we're so unaware of it because we look at it as, we feel as though we're obligated to have to be there for and through everything. And that's kind of, I hate to say it in that manner, but it's kind of an unrealistic expectation in theory. So please care about those who care about you. Please check in on people, where your time in your life allows. And don't feel so compelled to do what everybody else is doing. Be you and be okay with being you, and not have to press through showing out and showing off. Because like I said, a lot of people's routines have been changed all from that one incident. And the person who did it won't even understand the magnitude of that now, because they needed to do what they needed to do, apparently. So I'm going to end on that note. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for sticking around. We will be back with yet another episode. Actually, next week will be probably one of my favorite episodes, only because I have a guest coming on who he's been and I'm saying this being silly. He's been pressing me to come on the show. But I say it like that only because he and I have known, like, we've been friends. We've known each other for over 20 years. Practically for over 20 years. And we have a very, very unique backstory, but it's also a good space because I'm telling y'all this now. There will not, like, this show, there was a good amount of script, and not script, but there was like outlines and topics. But with him, I guarantee you there will be, by the time we finish the show or get to a good part with it, it's going to be like, hold on, man, we got more to talk about. Because there's that much of I don't want to give too much of it away, but I just know for a fact, like, he and I have sat and just had general conversations off, in life in general. And it's just crazy when you really sit and can talk with people and just they get it. And you'll see what I mean when he comes on the show next week. So I'm gonna leave it there, because if I give too much away, you'll be like, ain't no point in listening to this podcast because you just told the whole story. So until then, this is the Past BT, and I am your host, BT, signing out. Peace. Another episode is completed. Thank you all for listening. If you want to check out the podcast, you can go to buzzsprout.com. If you're looking to do podcasts, you can go to buzzsprout.com. To get to my podcast, you'll go to the pastbtpod.buzzsprout.com. If you're looking at getting a microphone, I always suggest getting the Blue Yeti. X. That is the microphone that I use. If you're starting off and you need something more affordable, Samsung Meteor, it's a worthwhile investment. And there are other microphones that are going to be simple enough. My big suggestion I tell everyone whenever looking for a microphone, be sure that your microphone has the ability to have you listen to your audio or listen to yourself as you're talking. It will make a big difference in your editing and your podcast. Also, most importantly, and I tell people this is a tip offline, but I'm giving this in the final listen or at the end of the show. Drink water while recording, and also just drink water in general. But drink water while you're recording, and the reason why, you'll be surprised. All right, see y'all on the next show.